So if you're an educator or just someone committed to lifelong learning, and you've seen the uptake, the advancements, and the proliferation of AI technology, changing the way that we interact with information, access it, process it, and make decisions based on it, you might be worried, you might be apprehensive, or you might be excited. See, I've been all three of these at some point. The more that I've tried to make sense of it and integrate it into a way that not only I learn, but also that I teach and I help others. But like me, you start realizing it's not about what we ask of it, but it's of knowing what to ask. The skill of being able to discern the limits of our knowledge, of knowing what we know, what we don't know, and what we don't know we don't know, may become more of a blurry line in this new era. There are plenty of online memes and observations that AI tools are sometimes fawning over us. They're too friendly, they don't offer any pushback, and they just please and appease us by validating everything that we're saying and asking. Unless you know to give it prompts or preferences to push back and challenge your arguments and your positions, we could quickly find ourselves having atrophy in our ability to have critical thinking, to look at another perspective, to understand the full spectrum of angles of a discussion. If you've been following the news, you may have seen an MIT research paper that came out recently. Now note, at the time of this recording, it's currently in preprint form, which basically means it hasn't been officially published by a paper or peer-reviewed, which are typically the gold standards for determining if the study and if the conclusions drawn are rock solid. That said, this research paper is starting to get a lot of traction and momentum worldwide for the potential implications this work has if it stands true. Now, researchers split 54 study participants who ranged in age from 18 to 39 into 3 groups and had them write a short paper. Participants in one group were placed in a large language model group and asked to use ChatGPT for help. The second group could use a search engine, while the third group had to write their essays without the use of external tools. Participants' brain activity was studied with EEG devices, and the results did not paint a flattering picture of AI use. The researchers measured brain connectivity, especially communication happening between different regions of the brain. And one of the researchers said, adding, the ChatGPT group had the least brain connectivity. Now you can understand why this made waves across the world, because if we're now seeing primary school, secondary school, and basically professional workers of all forms in every tier of the economy now outsourcing major copywriting or argumentative text or presenting papers, proposals, or anything that's trying to influence, persuade, teach, or educate others, we're no longer going through the mental process of truly refining and making sure what we're delivering is made for purpose. Part of the online program that I'm a 2IC and a head tutor for, we make use of AI enhanced workflows. We believe in leveraging custom GPTs that we can provide our students to help speed up or expedite some of the heavy lifting, some laborious tasks, some research that would otherwise take them hours, firing through Google and blogs, et cetera, using their inputs to then ultimately do the heavy lifting and to then provide them with an output. However, I noticed that a student had gone through this process and the response it provided had suggested or recommended that they shift or pivot their approach towards how they're growing their business and who they're specifically serving. So much so that they actually asked a question in our space, and I'm not going to include them or call them out, but what they actually asked was they said, hey, this tool suggested that I move towards an entirely different segment or market altogether. Do you think I should scrap who I'm currently focused on and move on this entire market? And I kind of found that this response both shocked me and it seemed quite obvious to say no straight away, but I've realized that these tools can sometimes become so convincing and so thorough in what they present that they make you second guess yourself because you outsource your critical thinking. You haven't had to switch your brain on during this entire process of working through information, turning it over, figuring out if it's relevant to you and tailoring the solution. So by the time they came to us, they were asking for a simple yes/no question that they weren't able to vet or run on their own. Now, I don't say this at all to shame the student or to call them out. Chances are you've done this, and I know I definitely have. There are times when I haven't gone through a sense check in my own thinking, and I've been happy to draw a conclusion and run with it. Instead of going for second, third, or fourth degree validation, or looking at the actual sources that it's drawn upon, I've just accepted on face value. Another dilemma that I see surfacing, especially in the educational space, is discerning when to turn to these artificial and synthetically composed responses from AI versus when do we turn towards timeless, lived experience from our peers, our friends, our teachers, our parents, and our mentors. There is something truly undeniable about hearing experiences from those that look like us, share values, or that are relatable to us. Those that have been in the arena, got the scars, and the wisdom that they've extracted from those experiences. I'm sure you've had this multiple times in your life where someone has imparted a sentence, a story, an anecdote that has forevermore remained in your mind. It has become a point of reference, a compass, maybe even a blueprint for how to carry yourself in other scenarios. You may forget everything else that happened that day, but something about the message and the way that it delivered stayed with you. This could have been a teacher in primary school, a coach of a sports team, or a mentor or a guide you had at some point in your life that came at the right time and said exactly what you needed to hear in that exact moment. At least in the 2-3 years that I've been playing and experimenting with ChatGPT and any other tools out there, I can't say that I've ever had a moment that has been anywhere near as profound or as influential in shaping who I am. And I can't help but think that humans are going to continue to crave more of this real world based education from others that have actually lived and walked the talk. And it isn't just a synthesized aggregation of all of the information that's currently available on the internet. But I'd be really curious to hear, what is your take? What is your position on this? How are you navigating or discerning when to turn to an AI friend for a quick and easy, convenient solution versus when are you stewing on a really, really deep and thoughtful question, one that you can reach out to a peer or mentor or someone in your life that has navigated that themselves? One of the critiques of the modern education system, at least one that has proliferated in the Western world, is that it was based on the Prussian education system, which was engineered predominantly to force more compliance, less creative thinking. It wanted to spit out generations worth of obedient factory workers that would show up to work 9 to 5 in uniform, not speak out of line, raise their hand, and clock in, clock out from Monday to Friday. It teaches you what to think, not necessarily how to think. And as they say, history rhymes, even if it doesn't necessarily repeat. And I can't help but feel like as if we're currently seeing a similar process happening at the moment. It's not sinister, it's not Machiavellian. It's not like as if these LLMs are intentionally being malevolent and they're trying to simply tell you what to think, because the output is only as good as the input. And if we're not having that pushback, if we're not having a mentor that's there to sharpen your actual thinking, we may be undergoing some of the same challenges that mass-produced education has. That's why in the practical sessions that I run, we organize breakout rooms for students to actually stress test or sense check some of the projects they're working on for their business or for their brand. We rely on peer-based learning to help sharpen everyone's thinking, to provide constructive feedback from real humans, not just an algorithm. And when students ask me a question where they're looking for more of a direct prescription, they want a yes, they want a short answer, they want me to tell them what to do, I will often answer a question with another question, which often just holds the mirror back to them. I'm asking them to be reflective, to be retrospective, to say what is actually landing for them, what seems to make the most sense based on what they know, or based on what we've covered. Or quite often I think of an example popularized in psychology, which is if you were providing a friend some advice right now, that is, you would have some objectivity on your situation, what would you say? See, 98% of the time, we often know what we need to do. We aren't given the prompts or the environment around us that actually forces us to do that, because it can often be a lot easier to subordinate to a conclusion that another supposed expert or authority in the topic has already made for us, whether that comes through an LLM chat prompt, a YouTube search, or a Google. So while as of September 2025, I don't have a hard conclusion or a projection on how this is going to affect education, what I'm bullish on is that educators or learners that are able to continue cultivating, conditioning, and practicing their cognitive abilities are going to be the ones that are going to cut through. The ability to find signal amongst all the noise of information, have clarity of your thinking and of your ability to articulate, and to come to conclusions formed on your own basis, regardless if right or wrong, but conclusions that are byproduct of your own processing are going to be paramount in this world going forward. That's never changed, that never will. I've been tossing up and weighing up this debacle for the last couple of months, and I think I will continue to do so. So if you have any thoughts, or there's anything that has resonated based on your role either as an educator or as a learner, someone who's playing with these tools and is a bit unsure how that shapes the future, I'd actually love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I want to continue unpacking and exploring more of this as I'm immersing myself into the world of these LLMs and incorporating it into my role as both an educator and also as a learner. But I'd love to hear your experiences because I need to get out of my own head sometimes. I hope there's some mental food for thought that you can chew on in this video. And as always, I appreciate your time and I'll see you in the next one.